Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin.
The fork stopped halfway to Rowan's mouth. Her mother's words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire, impossible to ignore, impossible to breathe through. Marcy can stay at Rowan's place for a while until she figures things out, Joan had said, smiling that nervous smile she wore whenever she tried to smooth over one of Marcy's disasters. Rowan set the fork down with deliberate care. The dining room felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in as her family waited for her response. Her father, Ralph, continued cutting his pot roast, the knife scraping against the plate with sharp, metallic sounds. "Funny," Rowan said, her voice level. "I haven't lived there in 6 weeks." The scraping stopped. Joanne's smile flickered and died. Marcy looked up from her phone for the first time all evening, her perfectly manicured eyebrows drawing together. "Wait." Joanne's voice cracked. "Where have you been staying?" Rowan picked up her water glass and took a slow sip. The ice cubes clinked against the sides. She could feel their eyes on her mother's confused worry, her father's growing irritation, her sister's dawning realization that something had shifted. She said nothing. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Ralph cleared his throat, the sound rough and impatient. "Well," he demanded, "you gonna answer your mother, or just sit there being dramatic?" Rowan met his eyes across the table. Same gray eyes she'd inherited, but his held none of the steel that had been building in hers for weeks. "I'm not being dramatic, Dad. I'm being quiet. There's a difference. Don't get smart with me." "Wouldn't dream of it." Joanne's hands fluttered over her napkin, smoothing it again and again. "Rowan, honey, I don't understand. Why haven't you been at your apartment? Is something wrong with the heating? The landlord?" The laugh that escaped Rowan's lips held no warmth. "Nothing wrong with the apartment, Mom." "Then where?" "Does it matter?" Rowan pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Seems like you all had my living situation figured out without asking me." Marcy finally put down her phone. "God, Rowan, why do you have to make everything so complicated? It's just temporary. I lost my apartment because you spent your rent money on that ridiculous business idea," Rowan finished. "The boutique that lasted all of 3 months. It wasn't ridiculous. The market just wasn't ready for overpriced clothes in a town where most people shop at Walmart." Rowan stood, smoothing her jeans. "Right. The market's fault." Ralph slammed his palm on the table, making the glasses jump. "That's enough. Marcy made a mistake, but she's family. Family helps family." The words hit Rowan like ice water. Family helps family. She'd heard those exact words 6 weeks ago, right before her world had tilted sideways. "Family," she repeated, tasting the word like something bitter. "Right." She walked to the coat closet, pulling out her jacket with movements that looked casual but felt rehearsed. She'd been practicing leaving, and it showed. "Rowan, please." Joanne's voice followed her. "Don't go like this. We can talk." "About what?" Rowan turned back to face them. "About how you assumed I'd taken my sister without asking. About how you planned out my life without bothering to check if I'd be there to live it." "Where have you been staying?" Joanne asked again, her voice small. Rowan zipped up her jacket. "Somewhere that's actually mine." She left them sitting at the table, their dinner growing cold, their questions hanging unanswered in the air. 6 weeks earlier, Rowan stared at her bank statement, reading the same line over and over until the numbers burned into her vision. The withdrawal was right there in black and white. $15,000, authorized by joint account holder Ralph Kessler. Joint account holder. She'd forgotten about that. When grandmother Eleanor died 3 years ago, she'd left Rowan the money, specifically wrote it right into the will. But the account had been set up when Rowan was 19, fresh out of high school and naive enough to think her father adding his name meant He was looking out for her $15,000. Gone. Rowan drove to her parents' house with her hands gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles went white. She parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, breathing through her nose the way her college roommate had taught her during finals week. She found them in the kitchen. Ralph was reading the newspaper, coffee mug leaving rings on the table. Joanne was washing dishes, her back to the room. "Where's my money?" Rowan asked. Ralph looked up from his paper. "What money?" "Grandma Eleanor's money. $15,000. Where is it?" The dish in Joanne's hand slipped, clattering against the sink. Ralph folded his newspaper with careful precision. "I had to use it," he said, like he was talking about borrowing her car for an hour. "Use it for what?" "Marcy's business needed capital, and we had some bills. My money paid for Marcy's boutique." It was a loan. Rowan almost laughed. "From who? From me? Because I don't remember agreeing to loan anyone anything." Ralph's jaw tightened. "Don't take that tone with me." "What tone should I take, Dad? The one where I pretend it's fine that you stole from me." "I didn't steal anything. That account has both our names on it, because you put your name on it when I was 19. That money was left to me, specifically to me." Joanne turned around, her hands still dripping. "Rowan, honey, your father was trying to help. Marcy's business was struggling and she needed to figure it out herself." Rowan cut her off. "Like I've been doing my whole life." "That's not fair," Ralph said. "We've helped you plenty." When have you helped me? I worked 3 jobs to pay for college. I found my own apartment, bought my own car, built my own life. The only help I ever got was money Grandma left me, and now that's gone too." Ralph stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "You're being selfish. Family helps family." There it was, the phrase that would echo in Rowan's head for weeks. "Family helps family," she repeated. Where was the family when I was eating cereal for dinner because I couldn't afford groceries and rent? Where was the family when I was working overtime to save up for a down payment on a house? "We would have helped if you'd asked," Joanne said, wringing the dish rag in her hands. "But Marcy didn't have to ask, did she? Marcy never has to ask. She just gets. And if there's not enough to give her, you take from me." "It's not like that," Joanne whispered. "It's exactly like that." Rowan pulled out her phone, showing them the bank statement. "Look at this. Look at the date. You took this money 2 weeks ago and didn't tell me. I found out because I was trying to transfer money for my car payment and my account was empty." Ralph crossed his arms. "I was going to pay it back." "With what money? The same money you used to pay for your truck repairs last month? The money Mom's been putting aside for groceries because you spent too much at the casino." Joanne's face crumpled. "How did you?" "I'm not stupid, Mom. I see the credit card bills on the counter. I see Dad coming home smelling like cigarettes and cheap beer. I see you buying store-brand everything, while Marcy posts pictures of her expensive dinners on social media." "That's enough," Ralph said, his voice rising. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know that you took my inheritance to bail out your favorite daughter. I know that you're behind on the mortgage because you're bad with money. I know that Mom covers for you every time. And I know that when push comes to shove, I'm the one who gets pushed." Rowan shoved her phone back in her pocket. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pay me back. Every penny with interest." Ralph laughed, but it sounded forced. "Or what?" "Or nothing. I'm not going to threaten you or make a scene. I'm just going to remember this conversation for the rest of my life." "Don't be so dramatic," Ralph said. "It's family money anyway. Your grandmother would have wanted it used to help the family. Grandma Eleanor left it to me. Not to the family. To me. She knew the difference." Rowan headed for the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. "And for the record, Dad, I'm not being dramatic. I'm being practical. There's a difference." Rowan, wait, Joan called after her. Be supportive. This is hard for all of us. Rowan turned back one last time. Being supportive would have been asking me before you took my money. Being supportive would have been treating me like family instead of like a backup plan. You're overreacting, Marcy said, appearing in the kitchen doorway. She was holding a shopping bag from some expensive store, receipt still stapled to the top. It's not like you need the money right now anyway. The bag, the receipt, $15,000 of inheritance money, and Marcy was still shopping. You're right, Rowan said quietly. I don't need the money. I needed my family to treat me like I mattered. Turns out I don't need that either. She left through the front door, closing it gently behind her. No slamming, no shouting. Just the quiet click of a door shutting on 29 years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who could be counted on to understand. That night, she packed 2 suitcases and checked into the Pine Lodge Motel on the outskirts of town. The weekly rate was cheaper than she'd expected, and the room was clean enough. She sat on the bed and looked around at the wood paneling and faded floral bedspread. This was hers. $42 a night, but it was hers. Wyatt Morales was under the hood of a 1998 Honda Civic when Rowan walked into his garage. She could see his boots sticking out, hear him cursing at whatever was giving him trouble. Wyatt. Rowan. He slid out from under the hood, his face streaked with grease. What are you doing here? Thought you were too good for us working folks, now that you have your fancy office job. Very funny. Wyatt wiped his hands on a rag that looked like it had seen better decades. What's wrong? You look like someone ran over your dog. Don't have a dog. Good thing. You'd probably have to sell it to pay for your sister's next business venture. Rowan's head snapped up. How did you? Word travels fast in a small town. Heard Marcy's boutique went belly up. Heard your dad had to help her out. Wyatt studied her face. Heard he cleaned out that account your grandma left you. Jesus, does everyone know? Pretty much. Marcy's been telling anyone who'll listen that it's just a temporary setback. Says she's got investors lined up. Rowan sank onto a plastic chair that had seen better days. Investors. Yeah, she's full of it, right? She's full of something. Wyatt tossed the rag onto his workbench. So, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? Money's gone. Family thinks I'm being selfish for being upset about it. That's not what I asked. Rowan looked at him. Really looked. Wyatt had grown up 3 houses down from her, and he'd always been the kind of kid who fought back when someone pushed him. Not with his fists, usually. Wyatt was sneakier than that. Smarter. What would you do? She asked. Depends. How much do you want them to hurt? The question hung in the air between them. Outside, a car backfired, and someone shouted something about needing jumper cables. I want them to understand, Rowan said finally. I want them to know what it feels like to lose something that matters. Wyatt grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. Now you're talking my language. They drove to Murphy's bar in Wyatt's truck, the radio playing some country song about revenge and whiskey. The bar was dark and comfortable, the kind of place where everyone minded their own business. Dahlia Quinn was working behind the bar, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked up when they walked in, her face breaking into a smile when she saw Wyatt. Well, well, look what the cat dragged in. She grabbed 3 beers from the cooler. Haven't seen you in forever, Rowan. Heard you were doing the corporate thing downtown. Was. Wyatt slid onto a bar stool. Tell her what happened. Rowan gave Dahlia the short version, the missing money, the family dinner, the assumption that she'd taken Marcy without being asked. Dahlia listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. When Rowan finished, Dahlia was gripping her beer bottle so tight her knuckles showed white. Your sister, Dahlia said carefully, is a piece of work. You know Marcy. Oh, I know Marcy. Dahlia's laugh was sharp. We went to high school together. She spread some rumors about me senior year that made my life hell for months. What kind of rumors? The kind that aren't true, but stick anyway. Let's just say I graduated with a reputation I didn't earn and leave it at that. Wyatt leaned forward. What kind of reputation? Dahlia gave him a look. Use your imagination. Ah, yeah. So when I hear that Princess is having money troubles, my heart doesn't exactly break. Rowan studied Dahlia's face. There was something hard there, something that had been polished by years of anger. She's engaged now, Rowan said, to some realtor from Atlanta. Poor bastard. Rich bastard, from what I hear. Levi something. Dahlia's eyebrows went up. Levi Chandler. You know him. He comes in here sometimes when he's showing properties in town. Tips well. Asks about the local market. Dahlia grinned. Real chatty after a few drinks. Wyatt and Rowan exchanged glances. What does he know about Marcy's business history? Rowan asked. From the way he talks about her? Not much. Thinks she's some independent entrepreneur who had a bad break. Interesting. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, nursing their beers and thinking. Finally, Dahlia spoke. So what's the plan? Plan? Come on. Nobody sits in a bar talking about family revenge without having some kind of plan. Rowan looked at her beer label, picking at the corner with her fingernail. They took what was mine. And I'm going to take what's theirs. Which is? Rowan met Dahlia's eyes, then Wyatt's. Everything. Joanne called every day for the first week, then every other day, then just weekends. Now, 3 weeks after the dinner, her calls had dropped to twice a week, and her voice had taken on a pleading quality that made Rowan's chest tight. Rowan, honey, please call me back. Your father's been asking about you, and I just want to know you're safe. We miss you at dinner. The table feels empty with your chair vacant. Rowan deleted the voicemail and tossed her phone onto the motel bed. The Pine Lodge wasn't much, but it was honest. No one here pretended to care about her while picking her pockets. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. I'm worried. Just tell me you're okay, that I'm fine. Rowan typed back. Where are you staying? Somewhere safe. Can we talk? We are talking that I in person, I mean. Rowan stared at the phone for a long moment, then turned it face down on the nightstand. She had work in the morning, and Joanne's guilt trips weren't going to pay her bills. Across town, Ralph Kessler sat at his kitchen table, staring at a stack of envelopes he'd been ignoring for 2 weeks. The mortgage payment was late. The credit card companies were sending increasingly stern letters. His truck needed new brakes, and the casino had cut off his credit line after that bad night with the poker machines. He told himself it was temporary. Rowan would come around. She always did. But the phone calls to her office had stopped going through to her desk, and her voicemails went unanswered. Ralph had even driven by her apartment building, but her car wasn't there, and the landlord said he hadn't seen her in weeks. She'll be back, he muttered, opening another bill. She always comes back. Meanwhile, Marcy was posting engagement photos on every social media platform she could find. She and Levi looked perfect together, in a designer dress she'd bought with the last of her credit. Him in a suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Levi Chandler was everything Marcy had ever wanted. Successful, handsome, from a good family in Atlanta. He treated her like she was special, like she deserved nice things, like her dreams mattered. He just didn't know about the debt, or the eviction notice she'd hidden in her purse, or the fact that her last 3 business ventures had failed spectacularly. I can't wait for you to meet my sister, Marcy had told him over dinner. Rowan's the stable one. Has her own place, good job, really responsible. Sounds like she keeps the family grounded, Levi had said. Oh, she does. She's always been there when we needed her. Marcy believed that when she said it. Rowan had always been there. It never occurred to her that might change that Rowan's plan began with research. She spent her lunch breaks at the public library, using their computers to search public records. Property deeds, business licenses, court filings. It was amazing what was available if you knew where to look. Levi Chandler owned 3 properties in the Atlanta area. His real estate license was current, his credit was good, and his social media presence painted him as a successful, honest businessman. He also had no idea what he was getting into. Rowan created a Gmail account under a fake name and spent an evening crafting an anonymous email. Nothing threatening, nothing that could be traced back to her. Just a concerned citizen sharing some public information about his fiancée's business history. The email included links to the boutiques, Yelp reviews, mostly negative, copies of bounced checks Marcy had written to vendors, available through the county clerk's office, and a timeline of her failed business ventures over the past 5 years. Rowan hit send and felt something settle in her chest. Not satisfaction exactly, but the beginning of balance. The next phase required Dahlia's help. "He'll be in Thursday night," Dahlia told her over the phone. "He's showing a property to some client from Charlotte, and they always end up here afterward." "What's he like when he drinks?" "Chatty. Asks a lot of questions about the local market. Wants to know about property values, stuff like that." "Does he talk about Marcy?" "Oh yeah. Can't shut up about her. It's actually kind of sweet, if you're into that sort of thing." Rowan wasn't into that sort of thing. Sweet made people careless. Thursday night, Rowan sat in a corner booth at Murphy's Bar, nursing a beer and pretending to read a book. She'd arrived early, claiming a table with a clear view of the bar where she could watch Dahlia work. Levi came in around 9, just as Dahlia had predicted. He was tall, well-dressed, the kind of man who looked like he'd never had to worry about money. He took a seat at the bar and ordered a whiskey neat. "How'd the showing go?" Dahlia asked, wiping down the bar in front of him. "Good, I think. Couples seemed interested. It's a nice property, just needs some updating. You know what they say about this market. Location, location, location." Levi laughed. "That's the truth. My fiancé's always talking about opening another business here. Thinks Asheville's ready for high-end retail." Dahlia's hand paused for just a moment. "Another business?" "Yeah, she had a boutique that didn't work out. Market timing, you know. But she's got great instincts." "I'm sure she does. What kind of boutique?" Levi launched into a detailed description of Marcy's business plan, her vision for bringing sophisticated fashion to small-town North Carolina, her entrepreneurial spirit. Dahlia made interested noises at all the right moments, asked thoughtful questions, and gradually steered the conversation toward Marcy's business acumen. "Sounds like she really knows what she's doing," Dahlia said. "Must have investors lined up for the next venture." "Well, not exactly lined up, but she's got family support. Her dad helped her out with the boutique, and her sister's always been really supportive." "That's nice. Family business can be tricky, though. Money and relationships don't always mix well." Levi's expression flickered for just a moment. "What do you mean?" "Oh, nothing specific. Just seen it go wrong before. Guy I knew took out a loan against his house to help his brother start a restaurant. Brother defaulted. Guy lost his house. Just makes you think, you know." "Marcy wouldn't. I mean, her family's solid. They help each other out." "I'm sure they do." Dahlia refilled his drink. "Just saying, smart to keep business and family separate when you can." She moved on to other customers, leaving Levi sitting at the bar, staring into his whiskey with a thoughtful expression. From her corner booth, Rowan watched the seed of doubt take root. The third phase required Wyatt's particular skills. "You want me to what?" Wyatt asked, looking up from the engine he was rebuilding. "Look into my dad's financial situation. Creditors, loans, anything that might be public record." "That's not exactly legal, Rowan. I'm not asking you to hack anything. Just dig into what's already out there. Court filings, lien notices, that sort of thing." Wyatt wiped his hands on a rag, considering. "What are you planning to do with this information?" "Nothing illegal." That's not what I asked. Rowan met his eyes. I'm planning to make sure the right people have the right information at the right time. And who are the right people? Anyone who's considering lending my father money. Wyatt grinned. Now you're talking. It took him 3 days to compile a complete picture of Ralph Kessler's financial situation, and it was worse than Rowan had expected. Behind on the mortgage, maxed out on credit cards, outstanding loans from 2 different banks, and a gambling debt that showed up as a lien against his truck. Jesus, Wyatt said, spreading the paperwork across his workbench. How has he been keeping this afloat? Mom's been cutting corners everywhere she can, and he's probably been borrowing from anyone who'll lend to him. Like inheritance money left to his daughter. Wyatt started making phone calls that afternoon, not to threaten or intimidate, just to share information. A word to the mortgage company about Ralph's gambling problem. A tip to his credit card companies about his recent large cash withdrawals. A casual mention to his poker buddies about how leveraged he was. Nothing that wasn't already public record. Nothing that wasn't already true. But truth had a way of spreading, and creditors had a way of calling in debts when they got nervous. The dinner invitation came through Joanne, delivered in a voicemail that shook with forced cheerfulness. Rowan, honey, your father wants to have a family dinner this Sunday. He wants Levi to meet everyone, officially. Marcy's so excited to introduce him to the whole family. Please come. We miss you, and it would mean so much to have everyone together. Rowan played the message 3 times, memorizing the nervous quiver in her mother's voice, the way she rushed through the words like she was afraid Rowan would hang up. She called back that evening. I'll be there, she told Joanne. Oh, wonderful. Should I set your usual place? Don't bother. I won't be staying long. Rowan. Sunday at 6, right? Yes, but... See you then. Rowan hung up and spent the rest of the week preparing. She printed documents, organized files, and rehearsed conversations in the mirror of her motel room. Sunday evening, she parked across the street from her parents' house and sat in her car for 10 minutes, watching through the windows. She could see them moving around inside, her mother setting the table, her father in his good shirt, Marcy showing off for a tall man in a suit. Levi looked exactly like his photos. Confident, successful, happy. He had no idea what was coming. Rowan checked her purse one more time, making sure she had everything she needed, then walked up to the front door. She didn't knock. The dining room fell silent when she entered. Ralph was in the middle of telling some story about his military service, gesturing with his beer bottle. Marcy was sitting close to Levi, her hand on his arm, her engagement ring catching the light. Rowan. Joanne jumped up from her chair. You came. I said I would. This is Levi, Marcy said, standing to make introductions. Levi, this is my sister, Rowan. Levi rose from his chair, extending his hand with a smile. Nice to meet you, Rowan. Marcy's told me so much about you. Rowan shook his hand. I'm sure she has. Something in her tone made his smile flicker, but he recovered quickly. She says you're the responsible one in the family. Someone has to be. Rowan, Ralph said, his voice carrying a warning. Don't start. Start what? You know what? Rowan pulled out a chair and sat down without being invited. Actually, I don't. Why don't you tell me? Joanne hurried to serve dinner, her movements quick and nervous. Levi, I hope you like pot roast. It's an old family recipe. It smells wonderful, Levi said, settling back into his chair. Marcy tells me you're a great cook. She does her best, Ralph said. Had to learn to stretch $1, you know how it is. Levi nodded politely, but Rowan could see him taking note of the second-hand furniture, the worn carpet, the careful way Joanne served small portions. So, Levi, Rowan said, cutting into her meat, Marcy tells me you're in real estate. That's right. Commercial and residential, mostly in the Atlanta area. Must be doing well. Real estate's been hot lately. Can't complain. It's been good to me. Good enough to support a wife. Marcy's fork clattered against her plate. Rowan. What? It's a reasonable question. Marriage is expensive. Levi laughed, but it sounded forced. I think we'll manage. I'm sure you will. Marcy's pretty good at managing money. Aren't you, sis? Marcy's eyes flashed. I do fine. Oh, absolutely. The boutique was such a success. It was a learning experience. Expensive learning experience. Ralph's beer bottle hit the table harder than necessary. That's enough, Rowan. I'm just making conversation, Dad. Getting to know my future brother-in-law. She turned back to Levi, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Has Marcy told you about her other business ventures? Rowan, stop it, Marcy said. The catering company that lasted 6 months? The jewelry-making phase? Oh, or the time she tried to flip houses without any actual capital. Levi's eyes moved between the sisters. I'm sure everyone has setbacks. Setbacks, Rowan repeated. That's one word for them. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. Speaking of setbacks, I brought some photos to show you. What kind of photos? Joanne asked, her voice small. Just some family memories. Rowan opened the folder and slid a sheet of paper across the table to Levi. This one's interesting. Levi picked up the paper, his face growing pale as he read. What is that? Marcy asked, reaching for it. It's a list of bounce checks your fiancé wrote to vendors for her boutique, Rowan said calmly. All part of the public record, of course. Marcy grabbed the paper and crumpled it. You're insane. Am I? Rowan pulled out another sheet. Here's another good one. The eviction notice from her apartment. Also public record. Levi stood up from the table. I think I should go. No, wait, Marcy pleaded, jumping up to follow him. She's lying. She's jealous, and… I'm not lying, Rowan said, her voice perfectly level. And I'm not jealous. I'm just sharing information. She looked at Ralph, who was gripping his beer bottle so tight his knuckles had gone white. Like information about Dad's gambling debts, or his mortgage situation, or the fact that he stole $15,000 from my inheritance to pay for Marcy's boutique. The room went dead silent. Levi stopped walking toward the door and turned back. He what? Took money from my grandmother's estate, without asking, to bail out the boutique business that you just saw the creditor reports for. That's not… Ralph started. It's exactly what happened, Rowan cut him off. Marcy needed money, Dad took mine, and when I objected, they told me I was being selfish. She stood up from the table, smoothing her jacket. Family helps family, right, Dad? Ralph's face had gone red. You little… Careful, Rowan said quietly. We have company. Levi was staring at Marcy like he'd never seen her before. Is this true? Marcy's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I didn't know. I thought it was a loan. From who? From your sister. From the family. That your father took without asking. It's complicated. No, Levi said, his voice flat. It's not complicated. It's theft. He walked to the closet and got his coat. I need some time to think about this. Levi, please. Marcy followed him to the door, but he was already leaving. The front door closed with a final sounding click. Marcy whirled around to face Rowan, her face streaked with tears and rage. You ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything. I just told the truth. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. Of what? Of your inability to hold a job? Of your talent for spending money you don't have? Of your gift for making other people pay for your mistakes? Ralph stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. You've gone too far, Rowan. You've ruined us. Rowan looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd raised her, who'd taught her to drive, who'd walked her to school when she was small. This man who'd stolen from her without a second thought. "No, Dad," she said quietly. "You did that. I just made sure everyone could see it." She picked up her purse and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Joanne called after her, her voice breaking. Rowan paused in the doorway, looking back at her family. Her mother, small and frightened at the table. Her father, red-faced and furious. Her sister, crying and beautiful and broken. "Somewhere that's actually mine," she said. Then she left them there, sitting among the ruins of their Sunday dinner, finally understanding what it felt like to lose something that mattered. The phone call started Monday morning. Ralph answered the first one while he was drinking coffee, still trying to process what had happened at dinner. It was his mortgage company, asking about his employment status and requesting documentation of his income. The second call came an hour later. His credit card company, informing him that they were lowering his credit limit pending a review of his account. By noon, his truck loan officer had left a voicemail asking him to come in for a meeting at his earliest convenience. Ralph stared at the phone in his hand, pieces clicking together in his mind. The timing was too convenient, too coordinated. This wasn't random. "Joanne," he called. "Get in here." His wife appeared in the kitchen doorway, her eyes still red from crying. She'd been crying on and off since Sunday night, when Levi walked out and Marcy locked herself in her old bedroom. "What is it?" she asked. "It's Rowan. She's behind this." Ralph waved his phone at her. "These calls, these meetings, she's been talking to people." "What people?" "Banks, creditors, loan officers. She's been spreading information about our situation." Joanne sank into a chair. "She wouldn't do that." "Wouldn't she? You saw what she did Sunday night. You think she's done with us." The phone rang again. Ralph looked at the caller ID and felt his stomach drop. It was Bobby Martinez from the poker game, the one who'd been letting Ralph run a tab for the past 6 months. "Ralph, man, we need to talk," Bobby said without preamble. "Heard some things that got me worried about that money you owe." "What kind of things?" "Things about your house being underwater, your credit being maxed out. Things about you taking money from your daughter to cover debts." Ralph closed his eyes. "Bobby, listen." "No, you listen. I've been patient with you, because we go way back. But if you're in the kind of trouble I'm hearing about, I need my money now. All of it. How much time do you need?" 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Bobby, come on, you know I'm good for it. 2 weeks, or we're going to have a problem. The line went dead. Ralph set the phone down and stared at the stack of bills on the kitchen table. Mortgage, credit cards, truck payment, utilities insurance. And now Bobby's debt on top of everything else. $15,000. If he still had Rowan's inheritance money, he could have covered Bobby and bought himself time with the other creditors. But that money was long gone, absorbed into the black hole of Marcy's boutique and his own poor decisions. He'd counted on having more time. He'd counted on Rowan eventually coming around, the way she always did. He'd counted on being able to fix this quietly, without anyone outside the family knowing the extent of his problems. But Rowan hadn't come around. Instead, she'd made sure everyone knew exactly how bad things were. The next 2 weeks were a slow-motion disaster. Ralph's credit cards were canceled one by one. The mortgage company started foreclosure proceedings. His truck was repossessed from the parking lot of his job, leaving him to catch rides with coworkers who asked questions he couldn't answer. Bobby Martinez showed up at the house on a Thursday evening, not alone. "Time's up, Ralph," he said, standing on the front porch with 2 men Ralph didn't recognize. "You got my money. I need more time." "You've had 6 months. That's enough time." Ralph looked at the men flanking Bobby. They weren't overtly threatening, but they didn't need to be. Everyone understood the situation. "1 more week," Ralph said. "Ralph." Bobby's voice was patient, like he was talking to a child. "You don't have the money. You're not going to have the money in a week. Your house is in foreclosure, your credit's shot, and your daughter's been telling everyone in town what a deadbeat you are." "She's lying." She's got documentation. Bank statements, court filings, credit reports. She's not lying, man. You're broke. Ralph felt something crack inside his chest. What do you want from me? I want what I'm owed. But since you can't pay it, we're going to work out a different arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Bobby smiled, but it wasn't friendly. You're going to leave town for a while. Give yourself and everyone else some space to cool off. I can't just leave. I have a job, responsibilities. You have debts you can't pay and people you've pissed off. Staying here isn't going to make that better. Ralph looked at his house, the house he'd lived in for 20 years, the house where he'd raised his daughters, the house that was about to be foreclosed on anyway. How long, he asked. Long enough for people to forget about you. Maybe long enough for you to figure out how to be a better man. Ralph nodded slowly. He didn't have a choice. Friday morning, he packed 2 suitcases and left a note for Joanne on the kitchen table. He didn't say goodbye to Marcy, who was still locked in her childhood bedroom, or to Rowan, who hadn't returned his calls in weeks. He just left. Meanwhile, Rowan was having her own meeting with a lawyer. The cabin had been in her family for 3 generations, passed down from her great-grandfather to her grandfather to her grandmother Eleanor. When Eleanor died, she'd left it jointly to Ralph and Joanne, with the understanding that it would eventually go to Rowan and Marcy. But Ralph had used the cabin as collateral for loans over the years, including a recent second mortgage he'd taken out to cover gambling debts. The paperwork was sloppy, the filings incomplete, and the bank was more interested in getting their money back than in dealing with property disputes. Your father signed over his interest in the cabin as collateral, the lawyer explained. But he didn't have the authority to do that without your mother's consent, and some of these documents weren't filed properly. What does that mean? It means there are legal challenges we can make. The bank's claim to the property isn't as solid as they think. Rowan had been saving money since she moved out of her apartment. Living in a motel room and eating cheap meals had allowed her to build up a small nest egg. It wasn't enough to pay off the loans on the cabin, but it was enough to hire a lawyer and start a fight. How long would it take? She asked. 6 months, maybe more. But if we can prove the bank's lien is invalid, the property reverts to the original ownership structure, which is your mother and your father. But if your father abandons his claim, if he leaves town and stops making payments, for instance, your mother could potentially sign her interest over to you. Rowan smiled for the first time in weeks. Let's do it. Joanne found the note Thursday morning, propped against the coffee pot where she couldn't miss aita. J.O. had to leave town for a while. Some business to take care of. Don't know when I'll be back. Sorry about everything. Take care of yourself. Ralph, she read it 3 times before the word sank in. Then she sank into a kitchen chair and cried for 20 minutes. When the tears stopped, she called Rowan. He's gone, she said when Rowan answered. Who's gone? Your father. He left a note. He's gone. Rowan was quiet for a long moment. Where did he go? I don't know. He just said he had to leave town. When? Sometime last night, I think. His suitcases are gone. Another pause. Are you okay, Mom? No, I'm not okay. My husband just disappeared. My younger daughter won't come out of her room, and my older daughter won't speak to me. I'm not okay. Do you want me to come over? Would you? Rowan hesitated. Yeah, I'll be there in an hour. The house felt different when Rowan walked in. Smaller, somehow. Sadder. Joanne met her at the door, looking older than Rowan remembered. Thank you for coming, Joanne said. Where's Marcy? Upstairs. She's been up there since Sunday. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where this whole mess had started weeks earlier. Joanne made tea neither of them wanted and stared at her hands. I know you're angry, Joanne said finally. I'm not angry anymore. You're not. Anger takes energy. I don't want to spend energy on this family anymore. Joanne flinched. We're still your family. Are we? Rowan studied her mother's face. Because family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie to each other. Family doesn't assume one member will clean up everyone else's messes without being asked. Your father made mistakes. Dad made choices. You all made choices. We were trying to help Marcy. You were enabling Marcy. There's a difference. Joanne's eyes filled with tears. She needed help. She was struggling. I was struggling too, Mom. I've been struggling my whole adult life. But I never got help. I got expectations. That's not. It's exactly true. Rowan's voice was calm, matter of fact. When Marcy needed money for her business, you took mine. When Marcy needed a place to stay, you volunteered mine. When Marcy's life fell apart, you expected me to fix it. We didn't mean it that way. But that's how it was. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of years settling between them. What happens now? Joanne asked. What do you mean? With the house, with the family. What happens now? Rowan reached into her purse and pulled out some legal documents. The bank's going to foreclose on the house. Dad's loans are in default, and he's not here to make payments. Can we stop it? Probably not. Dad owes more than the house is worth. Joanne's face crumpled. Where will I go? That's up to you. Rowan, please. I know we made mistakes, but I'm your mother. I need help. The words hung in the air between them. I need help. The same words Marcy had used, the same words Ralph had used, the same words everyone in this family used when they wanted Rowan to solve their problems. No, Rowan said quietly. No. I said no. I'm not helping. You don't mean that. I mean exactly that. I spent 32 years of my life being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who could be counted on to fix everything. I'm done. Joanne started crying again. I don't understand. We're family. We help each other. You help each other. I help everyone. There's a difference. Rowan stood up from the table. There's one thing I can offer you, though. What? The cabin. What about it? Dad used it as collateral for his loans, but the paperwork was sloppy. My lawyer thinks we can challenge the bank's claim. If we win, the property reverts to you. And then what? And then you sign it over to me. All of it. No joint ownership, no family claims. Just mine. Joanne stared at her. You want me to give you the cabin? I want you to sell it to me. For $1. Legal and final. But that's that cabin's been in our family for generations. And now it'll stay in the family. Just not the same family that stole from me. Rowan, please. This isn't you. You're not this cold. Rowan looked at her mother, really looked at her. This woman who'd raised her, who'd taught her to cook and balance a checkbook and be responsible. This woman who'd stood by and watched while her husband stole from their daughter. You're right, Rowan said. I wasn't this cold, but you made me this way. Footsteps on the stairs interrupted them. Marcy appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I heard voices, she said. Is Dad back? No, Joanne said. He's gone. Gone where? We don't know. Marcy looked at Rowan, her eyes red and angry. This is your fault. Is it? Levi won't return my calls. He thinks I'm a liar and a fraud. You are a liar and a fraud. I am not. You told him you were an independent entrepreneur. You told him your business failed because of market timing. You told him your family was supportive and stable. Which part of that was true? Marcy's mouth worked silently. That's what I thought. I loved him. You loved his money. That's cruel, Rowan. Even for you. Rowan stood up, gathering her purse and the legal documents. You want to know what's cruel? Cruel is stealing from your daughter to pay for your other daughter's toys. Cruel is expecting someone to clean up your messes without bothering to ask. Cruel is 32 years of being taken for granted. She headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Joanne called after her. "Somewhere that's actually mine." "Rowan, wait." Marcy followed her to the door. "We can fix this. We can make it right." Rowan turned back. "How? How are you going to make it right?" "I'll get a job. I'll pay you back." "With what skills?" "Your last 3 jobs lasted a total of 8 months. Combined. I'll figure it out." "No, you won't. You'll find someone else to bail you out. Someone else to lend you money or give you a place to stay or cover your expenses. That's what you do." "I can change." "You're 27 years old. If you were going to change, you would have by now." Rowan opened the door. "Think about my offer, Mom. The cabin for $1. It's a fair deal." "How is that fair?" "Because it's more than you gave me." 6 months later, Rowan sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The legal battle had taken 4 months, but her lawyer had been right. The bank's claim was invalid, and the property had reverted to Joanne, who had signed it over to Rowan for $1 and a promise that she'd never ask for anything else. The cabin needed work: new roof, updated plumbing, fresh paint, but it was solid. Built by her great-grandfather's hands, maintained by 3 generations of family who understood the value of things that lasted. Wyatt was inside, replacing the kitchen faucet and cursing at the ancient pipes. He'd been helping her with repairs in exchange for beer and dinner, claiming he enjoyed the challenge of working on something older than both of them combined. "Faucet's fixed," he called through the screen door, "but you're going to need a new water heater soon. Add it to the list." He came out onto the porch, wiping his hands on a rag. "Speaking of lists, you hear about your sister?" "What about her?" "Dahlia said she's working at the outlet mall now. Retail sales." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "How's that going?" 3 weeks so far. Dahlia gives her another 2 before she quits or gets fired." "What's the over-under on gets fired?" "Even money." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the morning light filter through the trees. A hawk circled overhead, riding the thermals with lazy grace. "You ever feel bad about it?" Wyatt asked. "About what?" "All of it. Your dad leaving town, your sister's engagement falling apart, your mom losing the house." Rowan considered the question. "Should I?" "I don't know. They're still your family." "Family," Rowan repeated, tasting the word. "You know what I figured out? Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. And they never respected me. And now they know what it feels like to lose something that matters." Dahlia's truck pulled into the driveway, gravel crunching under the tires. She got out carrying a 6-pack of beer and a bag of groceries. "Morning, sunshine," she called to Rowan. "Brought breakfast." "It's 10 o'clock. Breakfast is a state of mind." They grilled bacon on the old camp stove and made eggs in the cast-iron pan Rowan's grandmother had left behind. The morning was cool, the air clean, the conversation easy. This was what family was supposed to feel like, Rowan thought. People who chose to be there, people who contributed instead of just taking, people who respected each other enough to be honest. Her phone buzzed with a text message. The caller ID showed Joanne's name. Marcy lost her job. "Can you help?" Rowan looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Dahlia glanced over. "Your mom again?" "Yep." "What did she want this time?" "The usual." "You gonna answer?" "Nope." Rowan turned off her phone and slipped it into her pocket. The sun was climbing higher, burning off the morning mist, promising a clear day. She leaned back in her chair and smiled. They'd thought she'd forgive eventually, the way she always had. They'd thought she'd come back, clean up their messes, be the responsible daughter and sister she'd always been. They'd been wrong. "You know what the best part is," she said to Wyatt and Dahlia. "What?" "They're finally learning what I learned a long time ago." "Which is?" Rowan took a sip of her coffee and watched the hawk circle higher. finally catching a thermal that would carry it wherever it wanted to go. That you can't count on other people to save you. You have to save yourself. She'd saved herself. She'd taken back what was hers, built something that was truly her own, surrounded herself with people who chose to be there instead of people who expected her to fix their lives. And if her original family didn't like it, if they thought she was cold or cruel or unforgiving, well, that was their problem now, not hers, never again hers.